Welcome to our staff training event and our first sort of CPD where we're going to sort of think about our mental well-being by doing some cooking together. So in this short video I'm just going to show you how to make some flatbreads that we're going to serve with our falafels, but you can use this recipe to do, flatbreads to serve with other dishes as well. So they're a really useful thing to know how to make. So a flatbread has got nothing to make it rise, so there's no yeast or no baking powder, so they literally are just going to be sort of a cooked dough. So what I've got here in my bowl is 300 grams of plain flour. If you wanted to make it a bit healthier, you could use some wholemeal and sort of like mix it, but the important thing is that it's 300 grams. I've got 185 grams of soya milk because the version I'm making is going to be a vegan version, but if you wanted to, you could use ordinary milk, or if you wanted to reduce the fat, use a mixture of milk and water. I've got some salt. For mine I'm going to add some cumin seeds in and some cumin, but the flavour's very much what you like really. You don't have to worry about those flavours. You can have them plain, you could put different things in there, lemon, depending on what you're going to serve it with. Okay, so I'll just put those there. So that's our sort of measurements. So we've got our flour, our soya milk. It's very simple. There we go, I've just got my flour. I'm just going to put my salt into there. Some people like to sieve their flour as well, but for this recipe it's not really necessary because I don't want it to rise at all. So I don't really want to put any air in there. I'm going to put my milk. I'm being brave and putting it all in there, but we may have to correct it. And these seeds here are just toasted a little bit in a pan. I literally put them in my frying pan like this, and I've just put them on the heat, like that. I'm just going to cook them just for a few minutes until I hear them pop. You'll hear them start popping in a minute, and that just releases the flavour out of the seeds. Yeah. So it's really important. You may not want to use seeds in yours, some people don't like the seeds in there. So those have just started to pop. So I'm just going to add them to my mixture. I quite like the texture of the seeds, but as I said, some people don't, so that's fine. Cooking's very much about what you like. And thinking about what we're doing, we're meant to enjoy cooking, we're meant to be sort of thinking about the smells. When I'm popping them seeds, I'm getting these wonderful smells which are starting to sort of excite my taste buds. And doing things like this mixing, we need to think of it as a pleasurable thing. And it's not how quick I can get it done, it's like really sort of like thinking about the movement and how much I'm enjoying sort of working this dough. I love making dough. It's a really relaxing thing. Whether I'm making a flatbread with no yeast or baking powder, or whether I'm making a sort of soda bread with just baking powder, or I'm making just, I'm putting yeast in there and I'm going through all the processes of bread making. This is a really nice sort of thing to do. So that feels a little bit dry to me. So I'm just going to add a touch more liquid to it. Now, sometimes, although we follow the ingredients exactly, sometimes it might be too dry, sometimes it might be too wet. The reason for this is our flour. Different flours from different manufacturers absorb more or less liquid. So that's the reason sometimes we think, well, I've weighed everything up exactly, but it hasn't quite turned out. And part of our sort of like thought process when we're cooking is not to get angry and stressed when things happen. It's just to think, yeah, I just need to do this just to correct it. So it's just like relaxing really and just thinking, yeah, I know how to deal with that. It doesn't really matter. We're just cooking, we're enjoying ourselves. So what I've got there now is my dough coming together. My pan getting a little bit too hot. So what I'll need then, I'll need a little bit of flour then, just to roll it out on. Now I don't like making a big mess on my table, so I usually make a cutting board. And what I do first, I put some flour on my hands. It actually feels quite nice to do that, it's quite nice feeling. And this is the best bit I think when you're making doughs, is just getting it on the table there and just bringing it all together. Just this sort of motion of pushing it and flicking it with your hands and just swirling it round. And if you're feeling a bit stressed, this is a really nice feeling this dough in your hands. It's like really, I find it really stress relieving. You know, if I'm just feeling a bit stressed, just go and make some dough, and then you know you're going to have some like delicious flatbread, or you know, you could do some pizzas or something, and this is just so relaxing. You can really sort of get it there. So, well, some people just like to use the table like this and just really work it there. So really work your dough. You know, it's quite relaxing. And if you're feeling a bit stressed, you can give it a bit more sort of like, you know, movement until you get this really nice smooth dough. If it's all sticking to the table in your hands, just a bit more flour. You know, don't start thinking, oh, it's a mess, it's gone wrong. Just yeah, chill on how to get that. Sprinkle a bit more flour around. Okay, do be careful though, because flour can make a big mess, and it's not good for you to inhale either. So, you know, pastry chefs and people that handle pastry a lot tend to wear masks. We're all familiar with masks, aren't we? We've all got plenty of masks. So, but, you know, if you work in an area where there's lots of flour, you need to be, well, you're using it a lot, you should be wearing something to protect your lungs. A bit of health and safety there, because obviously I'm still a teacher, even though I'm doing this staff development day. So these are the sorts of things I would tell the students. So, there's 4 of us eating these flatbreads for our lunch, so we're going to have them with some falafels. So I'm just going to divide it into 4 portions. So what I do, I have this grease-proof paper or some paper sheets just to divide them up when they're done. Some of you probably haven't got this at home, so you might have some cling film or foil. That's okay, but you know, we have got to be sort of thinking about the environment as well. This is perfectly recyclable, and cling film's not that good to be using unless we really have to, is it? Sometimes like people use big thick sheets of plastic and just reuse it, but obviously, you know, a mindfulness day, we need to be thinking about things like, you know, the environment as well, don't we? And what our impact is. It might only be a little bit of cling film, but yeah. And then, you know, things don't have to be perfectly round. You know, there's nothing wrong with your flatbread being a different shape to somebody else's flatbread. It's all about the flavour and what you want to do with it. I'm just going to put my falafel in mine with a bit of salad. So I can put that on there then. I can put my next sheet of paper. I can reuse these sheets of paper after a couple of times. Or I can just do it by hand. If I haven't got a rolling pin, you know, I can do this. This is actually really nice. It feels really nice to do this. Or if I haven't got a rolling pin and I don't want to do that, I can use an old wine bottle or something. You know, I remember when I was a kid at home, my mum used to have an old milk bottle. She used to fill it with water and use it to roll out things on. There we go. I just enjoy it. You know, this is, you know, it's just a bit like, you know, there's the feeling this dough and just pressing it out like this with your hands. It's a bit like when you was a kid and you made those finger pots. So, you know, when you was a kid in the garden and you went and dug some clay up and made those little finger pots. It's a bit like that sort of feeling, really. So, I'm just going to come back to these last flatbreads in a bit. I just wanted to show you how you could layer them up like this, because it'll save you a bit of time later on. So I'm just going to make that one up in a bit. I'm going to pop that aside there. A little clear up first. This is the trouble with cooking at home and not at work. You know, you sort of haven't got another table you can move on to. You've got to sort of keep everything clean and tidy, haven't you? Which we do anyway in the kitchen. So I'm just going to wash my hands a little bit there. Take some of my kitchen roll. Just have a little clean down. And just get myself in the right, you know, the mindset now for cooking. If I've got mess all over my table, you know, it's making me feel a bit, you know, it makes you feel a bit stressed. So just thinking like, you know, there's no rush when you're cooking, is there? You don't have to rush. You can just sort of enjoy sort of cooking and cleaning. And if your work area is nice and tidy, then you just feel better about the whole process. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cook my flatbreads. So ever so easy to do, it only took me a few minutes. If I was doing a meal, I could prepare this dough and just wrap it up before. You know, I don't have to make it last minute. So I've got several options now how I'm going to cook these. I could use something like my skillet, or I could use a frying pan that I used earlier to pop the seeds. I'm sort of quite lucky that I've got one of these. So I popped into sort of Bourneville today, or Longbridge, Bourneville, and I borrowed one of these. This is what we use in the kitchen at work. So if I was working in Carolina's, which we're all familiar with, and if we're not, we need to become familiar with because it's the best restaurant in Birmingham, possibly even the country. This is a proper sort of flatbread sort of skillet. So these, we're very lucky to live in a city where there's lots of shops that sell sort of like specialised equipment. So if you go, you know, somewhere to one of the local hardware shops that specialise in this sort of equipment, you'll pick one of these up. It's about £3 or £4, really cheap, and they're great for this sort of stuff. As I said, we're very lucky to live in a city where there's an abundance of ingredients for sort of this sort of cooking, and you can go and get spices, you can get Polish food, you can get Indian food, Chinese, Japanese, anything you want. And there's always shops that sell the specialised equipment. So this is the best bit now, because this is all the smells that are going to come out. Yeah. You see, the reason I've done it on this paper is I can just pick it up like this, and I can just drop it into my pan. And I haven't spent all that time making my flatbreads, and they're all suddenly all stuck together in a big dough again, which is not very sort of relaxing. But now it's just a matter of just cooking them really. I'm just giving them a couple of minutes each side, and I'll probably rush that one a little bit. You will see this will give you the best result. And then it's a matter of just finding the right heat. So what I quite often do is make little tiny ones as little testers sometimes. Probably turn that one over a bit early because the pan's not hot enough. As you can see, when things go wrong, you don't need to get thinking. You just have a little laugh to yourself and you think, oh, you know, cooking's not stressful. Cooking is just about enjoying what you're doing. You see this one's all starting to pop up at the front now. What I like to do, but you do need to be a bit careful doing this, is take a wedge of cloth like this and just press it down like this. This is the magic. But be careful, and you'll see that when I do that and I take it away, it puffs up in the centre, and that almost presses it into the skillet and gives it this lovely sort of flatbread finish here. So I'm going to be eating these later with see that there, see it popping up, so beautiful. And while I'm doing this, all those beautiful smells are really sort of like, you know, starting to excite me. There we are, there's our flatbread. And just to say that it does work on something else, be very careful when you're doing this though, because you are dealing with heat and things can get a bit, you know. There we go. So the other one's a better one. You see, just to show it does work with this one as well, it just probably takes a little bit longer. You see there's that magic puffing. This is what you'll be doing at home, so just be careful when you do this bit. It's not absolutely necessary if you're not confident to do it. And the other way I can do it, if I haven't got this sort of thing, I can quite simply just pop it on a baking tray and put it in the oven. So, there we have our flatbreads that we're going to use in just a few minutes, just to fold in half and fill with our falafels. So, enjoy making.